Yeah.
Okay, we're live.
Sweet.
And I know people are waiting. They've been waiting.
They're on standby.
Sorry, y'all. We were talking, trying to get things coordinated. I am exhausted. So, yeah, we were just trying to figure out what we were going to say. I am Dr. Tori J. I'm the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. Clearly an organization that's supposed to be perfect in every single way. But we'll get into that another time. But tonight I have brought on Chris Cole. He is a current client of ours. He is someone that we have been fighting to get him into a courtroom to have another time, I guess, time with his children, more than the standard. And we're going to kind of go through things because who knows who's going to come on here tonight, Chris. The last time we did this,
hey, bring it on. Hey, Dr. Tori, you know what? Yesterday I had a nonsense conversation with my ex, and she threatened her lawyer contacting me. And I said, I'd love to hear from him. I'd love to have him on my podcast. And she sort of laughed at me and I guess thought that was a joke. But if he'd like to get on, I want to send out an invite right now to my ex's attorney, my ex. And if your boyfriend wants to come on, I'm welcome to do this.
I don't want them on tonight.
Oh.
Look, my husband goes, "Where's Brittany?" My husband just put that in there. You guys are trying to instigate a fight, and I don't want the fight. You see that, Chris? Where's Brittany? My husband.
We're not trying to.
You see that on the, yeah, I just put it up there. See? So let's get into this, Chris. Let's get into this because I didn't even get to introduce him before he chimed in. I kind of got a little bit out. So the last time Chris and I were on here, we were talking about fighting for fatherhood. An hour in, we were able to get his ex, who jumped on with her. Well, her boyfriend jumped on and then was accusatory and all these different things. Some stuff I knew the truth to. Other things, you know, it was a whole. Trust me, it was a whole situation.
He said, she said.
Yeah, I love Chris because I know he has a heart of just a pure heart. I know he's made mistakes like many of us, but his heart is pure. He has a true desire. Even in the time of working with him, I've gotten to know that about him. We have conversations often. Chris is passionate in a way about his children that a lot of fathers are. And we need to recognize that sometimes the passion comes out in a way that people don't necessarily like. I can advocate for a man who's passionate more than I can a man who's passive. And your passion is very clear. He's also the director of Victims of Family Law. He is pushing for libertarian Joe Jorgensen, as you guys can see all the advertisement. So Chris.
This is free advertisement too. I need to go get my Gatorade and hopefully they'll sponsor me.
So let's get into this, Chris, because a lot of people want to have this conversation because they've dealt with child support. Chris and I have been working together. One of the biggest complaints, and I'm just keeping it, we're going to be transparent in this conversation. One of the biggest complaints with attorneys who we were working with trying to get them to take Chris's case was, oh, he's behind in child support. He hasn't paid, right? That was a conversation that was had even on the last live that we did, that he was behind. He was behind because the child support is not an actual number based on his income, which happens a lot for fathers. He's been in a temporary order for 2 years now that should have only really lasted 6 months. So now that he's been in this temporary order, the temporary order of $1,400 in child support has been placed upon him when Chris makes maybe $2,500 a month, just so you know. And that was prior to COVID. Now that COVID has hit, there is no money.
I mean, I'm making unemployment right now, and that's probably the best.
Hold on, you jump in the gun. So when Chris gets unemployment, that kicks in around June, right, Chris?
Yeah.
May, beginning of June.
I filed for it, and it took almost 9 weeks to even receive.
Yeah. So he gets it May, June. He's now in a position where he's able to pay off some bills, but he also recognizes that he has child support that is still accruing, and they're demanding their money, even though the world is at a standstill.
Everybody's
at a standstill. So this becomes a conversation. Chris, you get this letter. We've become aware. You talked to me about this letter. I'm telling you that attorneys need you to pay something on child support. Chris then makes the decision based on myself, his mother, and I, we're all on the phone, and it's like, just do the right thing. Like, we're going to do this purge payment. even though Chris isn't making any money. Chris pays how much, Chris?
$4,600.
Chris pays $4,600. And after paying the money, they told him, pay the money and you don't have to come to court. That was the message. It's even on the letter. For those who are trying to figure it out, it's even on the letter. I saw the letter. His mother saw the letter. Everyone's seen the letter. He calls child support. They tell him how much it is. And they tell him, you don't have to come if you pay this amount. Like many fathers, Chris didn't want to go in front of the judge to hash it out, so he paid the amount. He did the right thing, people. And not even 2 full days after his hearing that he wasn't supposed to show up for, they're knocking at his door to arrest him with a receipt in hand. And they say you didn't pay and you actually have a failure to appear.
Yeah.
So let's go from there, Chris. What was that moment like? Number one, you did the right thing. What's that moment?
I made that choice after speaking on the phone with you to not try to go to court and hash it out and use any logic or reason, because I've witnessed firsthand what it's like to be bullied by the court system, especially without an attorney present. It's not comfortable. It's emotional. It is no matter how much evidence or reason that you have to present. It's a they sit there on their bully pulpit and they treat a father who's really just actually the victim as the culprit. And that's literally by design. So I avoided court. I spoke to the woman on the phone, who was very dismissive. The women in child support are politely dismissive, politely tolerant of me. And as I'm sure they are with most people that are the non-custodial parents, typically fathers, almost as a culture, it's a child support culture. And so I spoke with her, and her words to me were, we are requesting from the court that you pay 4 months worth of arrears, which comes to $4,600. And I said, you're requesting that amount even with the COVID situation. I'm telling you, I'm unemployed. I just started receiving unemployment. My bills are 3 months behind. I have, a car payment that's 6 months behind. A cell phone bill that's 6 months behind. And they have my child support currently at a number that's taking over 70% of my income at the time, which now with unemployment, what they're paying me for unemployment with the funding and all that stuff, I did the math and it has me at 60%. So the income that the government's giving me and the child support they're demanding, 60% is what they're asking for currently. Yeah. And I can't get into court for the life of me. I've put in twice for a modification. The only time I was able to receive any modifications was when I had an attorney present, and they didn't even do it based on a worksheet. It was sort of I would say it was a tactic to get me to comply with these small reductions that I had to agree to because my attorney told me I should, my attorneys. And they told me that it was a moot point, meaning that we were going to fight for custody and have this even adjusted more. So let's just take this as a small win. Well, there's been no true modification in 2 years based on either my income or her income. And the original child support was set based on a lie. And I can prove that because obviously, as time shows us and taxes show us, I now have 3 years worth of taxes that shows that literally they were bankrupting me from the start. And the problem is when systems make mistakes, they try to hide them. And what they do is they try to throw you in jail. They try to scare you. They try to silence you. Lawyers use other tactics, such as threats of defamation. I think Brittany was on here one time and said something about defamation of character. Just throwing around terms that are utilized in our justice system to be essentially abuse further. So at the end of the day, after speaking with you and my mother, I decided to make the
And let,
payment.
and let me be clear. I wasn't like, Chris, you should pay. We wanted to know what Chris felt.
Yeah,
Miss Judy wanted him to go to court.
yeah,
But I
she wanted me to fight and
yeah,
reason with the judge.
judge. And I could tell by Chris's temperament that he was not willing to go through the trauma. And so that's how that conversation ensued. I was not giving him the legal advice of what to do, but I was
Right.
definitely picking up that he was not trying to go there. And I couldn't personally get him the attorney that we would normally be able to do, because every time they looked into his case, they noticed this lack of payment. So I'm just being candid and clear on this process. And Kristen said, you know what? I don't want to deal with the trauma. I want people to put in the box, because I want to address this honestly. If you have been afraid when you go to child support court or any type of custody court, put a 1 in the box. And I'm talking about afraid to the point where you're like, you know what? I'm going to just go with it. I'm going to just do it. It's for my children. And then it bit you in the butt. Put a 1 in the box. Put a 2 in the box if you have no idea what we're talking about. Put a 1 in the box if you have been afraid, traumatized, and you knew they were going to say things to you that were hurtful, and you were like, never mind, I'm going to just go along with the flow. Put a 1 in the box. Put a 2 if you have no clue what we're talking about. So go ahead, Chris.
So, I decided to pay because I knew I had experienced the nonsense that took place in that courtroom, which I have the audio from that day, in fact. And I'm going to break down that audio eventually. And one of the comments that was made during my last show cause by the attorney for child support was, don't you think your advocacy time that you spend, which I think I told her it was about 10 hours a week, of volunteer advocacy for equal shared parenting. First of all, when I said equal shared parenting, they were like, what's that? It was met with like a, what's that? Like they were all looking at each other like they were confused. And then she said to me, wouldn't my time be better spent, those 10 hours a week, working a second job to earn money to pay my child support? I thought that was a profound statement in the moment. And I found it was a profound statement as I was driving home. And it was a profound statement when I listened to it again on the audio that I subpoenaed. So I didn't want to be in that environment again. I know the game now. I've been doing this for 2 years. I looked at it as we're about to go to court. So make this very large payment to avoid the courtroom shenanigans, because ultimately it was going to be them, making me feel bad or saying things that weren't true. I might have not bit my tongue and said things that were out of the way. They may have put me in jail for more.
You would have literally said something about them extorting you.
I would have been like, why don't you quit stealing people's children and give me my kids and my money? I know you guys are criminals. That's what I would have said. And I think either some of them know it or some of them are really oblivious. They're just trained in family law that this is just how things operate. What's your opinion, Dr. Tora? Do you believe that there's good people unaware that they're doing harm to people in family law?
Well, let me go here because Charles just posted something. He said, I go to court all the time. I've gone up against federal prosecutors and not been worried. I fear and hate family court because there's no accountability and it is so biased and outside of any kind of due process law. That's the truth. And I know a lot of people feel that way. So wait a minute. So Nick says, walking into a courtroom with no education with law is very intimidating. When you have a judge, a lawyer defending child support, I get what he's saying, sheriff with cuffs ready. Yeah. This lack of authority really, at the end of the day. And I refuse to pay $48,000 arrears for a child. I have DNA tests proving I'm not the father. Jesus, Nick. See, it's all, and this is what people have to recognize. So I want to go back to even your situation. The reason this whole thing with this temporary custody order has gone on for 2 years, we've said it before, because her attorney kept stalling. Her attorney was using those same old tactics of stalling until Chris ran out of money. Once Chris ran out of money, his attorneys filed for a withdrawal of the case, they were immediately ready to go forward with the custody case, you guys. You have to recognize that this is a tactic used by some attorneys who can't practice law very well. So they know exactly what to do. They know dads are like Chris are going to eventually run out of money. They know his funds are limited. He's going to run out of money, not just from paying the attorney, but also having to pay child support. They know this. They've seen his income. So he utilized that moment to try to go forward finally after a year and a half with an actual custody hearing. We were able to get that continued so that we could get an attorney in place so Chris could get as close, if not 50-50, as close to 50-50 as possible. And that's where we are right now. But they did this unable to get him a custody hearing because of COVID, but was able to press this child support issue. And I'm not going to lie, Chris knows I was furious knowing that he was being arrested that day. When I tell you his hearing was on Friday, by Tuesday morning, 2 business days at minimum. It wasn't even 2 business days.
No, so here's what happened. The arrest took place the following Tuesday.
Yeah, not even the full 2 days.
So no one came. So Monday I paid. I think it was Monday or Tuesday I paid. Friday was court.
You paid Monday morning.
I believe it was. I think it was Monday. I called them.
It wasn't. I think you paid Monday morning. The week of your hearing.
It was before the court date.
Hold on. I'm giving exact times.
Okay, I haven't looked. I haven't.
11-ish. I don't remember 11, whatever it was.
I can pull the receipt up.
On Friday.
Yeah.
They arrested you on Tuesday, but you have had to continuously wait for a court hearing for custody.
Right. So they were happy to bring me in. 1 into jail, 2 into a courtroom to discuss non-compliance. Yeah. But none of these courts are in a rush to reunite people and their children.
No.
And sorry guys, even if you have good intentions and you're not a bad person and you want to plead the fifth to being ignorant to what's really going on in family court, if you work in family court and you are not pushing for custody resolutions as quick as possible, you are part of the problem, and you may need to either evaluate yourself or find a new career, because that is your job. Your job is to protect the well-being of the children as well as their parents, not to extort and destroy one in order to collect funds for child support. And right. So yes, they rushed. Friday, I didn't hear anything. I had paid, like you said, Monday, before Friday, that same week. And I went ahead and just paid it with a credit card. Apparently it went to the central office in Raleigh in the Capitol. And, they said that the payment didn't clear. Now, the attorney that I spoke with, who we're in the process of speaking with, stated to me that, on Wednesday, when the child support agency collects all their payment data for Friday's court date of that week, that they didn't see a cleared payment of mine, that it didn't clear until Thursday. My contention is that they had Thursday, they had Friday, and apparently they also had Monday and Tuesday to check, and they could have seen that a payment was made and that it had cleared. Instead, they sent someone to arrest me, which I find very odd that we would arrest people first. And then even when they're coming to arrest you and you're spending, hours showing them the receipt in your hand, telling them it's a misunderstanding, they just need to clarify it. Send the judge a text. I don't care. We can send people to outer space. I don't have to be in front of a judge or have that judge it doesn't have to be child support day on Friday to communicate with a judge through email or text. I obliged the officer. I know the officer. He didn't handcuff me. We were joking in the car about clarifying this issue. He took a picture of my receipt. Mm-hmm. And so I thought it was a formality. I didn't mind going in and clarifying it to exonerate myself and show my innocence of the matter. It was a pain in the butt, and they woke me up out of bed, and thank God he let me put my pants on and didn't put cuffs on me. But I got there, and as I'm explaining the story, they just sort of told me that, we can't talk to a judge until Friday. So minimum, you're going to be in here till Friday. The magistrate gave me my arrest. I guess it was arrest warrant, and with my court date. And the court date was actually set out till September 4th.
Come on.
So
they were going to hold you until September.
That was the court date.
And let me say this, because Mama Judy and I are on the phone, and we're like calling attorneys, and I'm checking back in with the attorneys, letting them know that he's paid. Can we move forward? Mama Judy and I are calling the bail bondsman. Okay. This is something that I learned that day. So when we called the bail bondsman, they are telling us, because now the courts want $10,000 from Chris after he's already paid cash, after he paid $4,600. So the statement becomes, if it's a child support issue, there is no bail bondsman. You have to pay cash. You cannot get bailed out. So the truth is if Chris didn't come up with 10 grand at that moment, he was going to have to pay $10,000, period. Like, he was going to have to pay it, and no bail bondsman was going to get him out. So we were able to work things out. They found out that they made an error. They got the information together, but Chris then has to spend the night in jail, change clothes. And I won't lie, Chris, I heard the moment when you realized this was not going to be good. I heard my client, like, it was a moment where I was concerned for his mental health, you guys, because I remember hearing the moment it clicked in you that I'm in here for real.
Like, no one's listening to me.
And they were trying to take you to the back immediately.
Oh, I was fighting to stay on the phone with you guys until we clarified. Yeah. They were keeping me in a holding cell. I was in a holding cell for 5 or 6 hours, on the phone. And if anyone has ever been in a holding cell, you can call collect, but I didn't have my wallet with me because the officer told me not to bring a lot of stuff, because then I'd have to, go through and have it checked and all that, whatever. So I didn't bring any money to make a call or anything like that. So I'm having to do free local calls. Well, the calls only last 2 minutes. So I'm hanging up, calling back.
Yep, because I was on three-way with your mom.
And they're listening to you, which if anyone's been in lockup, of course they're screening your phone calls, basically listening to your conversations of their own criminal activity as you're fighting for yourself. If this call is being monitored, then you need to listen up and let me out because you're making a big mistake.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they're just like, well, there's nothing we can do today, so you need to come with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to the back. And I'm like, I'm not going back anywhere. You're going to take me home.
Right. But when you realized you weren't going home,
I was like, it was like the Twilight Zone. I was like, is this happening? Like, am I going, did I just spend all my money? Did I just clear my bank account to pay to avoid court, to only be put in jail?
To do the right thing, but only be put in jail after, and then they now had to pay an extra $500
to get an attorney.
His father was going to show them receipts and show them the letter that literally says to avoid court, call blah, 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 and pay the fee they tell you to pay. Okay, you guys, this is not right. And I don't know,
it's illegal.
Explain it. It's not right. And if we don't do something and have real conversations about it, I don't know how it's going to be made right. And Chris and I, we were fired up last week. When I tell you, I was afraid when he got out of jail, because once the attorney got involved, it was immediate. Oh, yeah, we made a mistake. Let's get him out. But it was after 5. So now he has to spend the night.
When I go to the bank and I give them my money, they at least give me a lollipop. Nobody gave me nothing when I left that jail. Not a high five, not a good job for your time served illegally, nothing. And no, I was pretty hot. That's why I made sure I made the phone. So I made sure I made the proper phone calls to diffuse my rage.
First, we wanted to do this on Friday to kind of in the midst, but we were glad we could do it on Monday. Chris was like, let's do it when people are off work. Let's do it, because he had his kids this weekend and I didn't want to interfere with that.
Oh, and I told them that I had my kids this weekend and they were like, that sucks. Yeah, that sucks.
Sorry. That's what they said. So
we'll try to get you in to see the judge Friday morning before your court date. That'd be the earliest, but it's no guarantee. And I said, I'm supposed to get my kids in the morning.
And they were like, we don't care.
You are arresting me falsely, and the court is actually making me violate my own court order.
Yeah.
You big stupids.
So I want to bring in an attorney that I've worked with out of Houston. She has one of our cases. You guys have posted the videos and the newspaper articles and all the stuff about Clifford Hall in Houston who overpaid child support. I don't know if you remember this conversation, Chris. Do you remember that case?
It sounds familiar. Obviously, when was it?
And he overpaid child support is what they said. And so they were trying to make him spend 6 months in jail. Yeah. So Tyesha, we connected. I called her immediately from seeing this. We connected from then. We've been connected. She came and did the conversation with me at the Super Bowl because she is a fan of the NFL. And so she came and partake of that conversation. But she's got her own conversation and issues with child support. So we're going to introduce attorney Tyesha Elam to this whole platform because I believe that she can help people deal with the issues they have with attorneys. Hey, Miss Tyesha, look, we're going to get you in here, girlfriend.
Oh, here we go.
How are you?
Good evening. I'm good. How about you guys?
So Tyesha, I've been talking with Chris, who's a client of mine. Chris is he's advertising his libertarian president tonight.
We need a woman president this year. We need Joe Jorgensen.
I'm the legal side. Often people are like, "Oh, she's not an attorney," but I know plenty of them, and I know some feisty, and I know some sharpshooters. And I text Tyesha around 5 o'clock ish, 5:45 ish, and was like, "Can you come on for about 30 minutes to help explain to people this challenge when child support makes a mistake, right?" Because you've dealt with many of their mistakes and trying to arrest your clients. Talk to us about Chris. Oh, let me say this. Chris was arrested because they made a mistake. They didn't see his payment in time and then said that they were arresting him for failure to appear, although he did the purge payment of almost $5,000. Now they're making him spend. They're not listening to anyone showing receipts. And he gets out the next day, but he's already traumatized, child.
I'm broken. Sure. I'm broken for good.
You're not broken for good. We're going to work on that, but I know it's traumatizing.
I went in there 5'6". I'm only 5'4" now. So
they chopped him down. So talk to us about when child support does this and the mistakes and what this looks like for the victim.
Oh yeah, it can be devastating for sure. I think what we fail to have in a lot of jurisdictions is a remedy, an administrative remedy, and I think that's what's missing is that, if I do something wrong, you guys know, as a lawyer, you go straight to the bar, but what do you do when the state does something wrong? You can't go to the state, and so I think what's missing is that administrative remedy. So what Chris and other victims have to do is let their legislature know, their city council, that, hey, what do we do? I know what happens when I make a mistake, but what happens when they make a mistake, when sorry is not enough? Because I would check your local statutes. What I found when I did the Cliff Hall case is that there was a precedent where some states have a certain amount of money that the state has to pay you for every day that you're wrongfully incarcerated. Now, you may say, well, I was just there 24 hours. Well, there was a state where every 24 hours was $8,500, but you would never know that. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to tell you that, no lawyer probably even is going to tell you because they don't know, it doesn't come up often enough for that to be in the back of our minds. Mm-hmm. But that's a remedy that's very seldom used, but it's out there, so you could you could check your local jurisdiction, look for case law, and say, hey, well, what has a day in jail in my jurisdiction been valued at, and make a demand. Send a letter that says, hey, I spent 24 hours in jail because of you all's error. Run me my money. Send me my check for, for this amount.
Does child support intercept that as well?
No, that's a judgment, you know what I mean, that they're probably gonna make you fight, to get paid out. But it's something that, to me, if you flex those muscles, they'll be more careful next time.
That's what I like. See, once you flex the muscles, because so often we don't know. Why people perish for a lack of knowledge. I'm done with you in the muscle flexing. Chris has a personality type.
I love it.
And so a lot of times people do perish because they have a lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. Yes, family law is what it is, but there are a lot of case law out there that you can utilize for your particular case that maybe your attorney doesn't know. And sometimes that is the job of the non-custodial parent or whoever's fighting, to really do their research so that they can, like, hey, this is what I want to present. Uh-oh, she's frozen. This is what I want to present to help my own case. Hopefully she can come back. Uh-oh. Oh, she froze up.
Can she still hear us? Sometimes if, yeah, there she is.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. It froze for a half a second. Yeah.
Okay, so so here we have, I like that, Chris, take note. There may be something in South Carolina, but we're going to talk about that after we get off of here. Because trust me, that's the next step. But we want to fight to make sure he has time with his children. When we're talking about, even, let's have this conversation. A dad goes to court, Attorney Tyesha, and child support is a part of the conversation, but they, impose this. He has the potential to make wages, right?
I have the potential to go to outer space, but that's not happening.
Right?
Yeah.
Potential.
Yeah.
And then Chris has been stuck in a temporary order that should have only lasted 6 months for 2 years with this over $1,400, $300 for child care, $1,700. This man only makes, even before COVID, about $2,500 a month.
Yeah.
So now he's stuck paying this money because the other attorney, the opposing party, stalled out until he lost all of his money and he had to get rid of an attorney because he don't have any more. Then they're ready to move forward, right? What can a dad do to help modify whatever this child support is when he's stuck in that situation for a lengthy period of time? Because there's a lot of dads in that, a lot, and
Yeah, we have the ability to earn statute here in Texas as well. And just to give you a little background, that statute is the result of so many fathers and non-custodial parents becoming underemployed to spite the custodial parent. So you're bearing the burden of those that went before you and tried to beat the system. So that's the disadvantage, is that for the good dads that are trying to, work hard and pay what they can, for the engineer that said, well, I'll go work at McDonald's before I give you, a third of my check, that's why that statute. Go ahead.
Here's my logic on that too, is, what I choose to make is my right. If I choose to work at McDonald's, not that I did when I was 16, but that also makes me less money. So to be spiteful just to not pay child support, that would be one that's sort of foolish, because you're cutting your own pocket by making less money to pay less money. I'd rather just earn more money at my job and pay a little bit more. The problem lies the amount of child support. Child support is not based on true out-of-pocket economic costs. No one sits down with parents and discusses their economic status and what their bills are to make sure mom and dad are okay. They have a worksheet that has this magical unicorn algorithm that you plug and play, and then they go, this is how much you pay. Well, as parents, we should be questioning, just like when we pay taxes, we should be questioning what that means. And I've seen studies where economists, that have worked for the federal government have stated that a custodial parent is receiving anywhere between 200 to 400% over out-of-pocket costs, which means that a custodial parent is actually profiting off off receiving child support, because the state is also getting their part of that as well, especially if you're a Title IV case.
Well, let me say this. Go ahead, Tyesha, because I know Tyesha well enough to know she fights this at the local and the national level. So she's not an advocate for all of this going on. I always check in with her and be like, how's it going?
Yeah.
I'll let you answer what you're talking about.
It's so important. Yeah, it's so important for states to at least mirror the states that are getting it right, and I don't know what they're doing in South Carolina, but I just know that states like New York are getting it right. States like New York say that, hey, our child support is going to not only, be need-based, but it's also going to go directly to sources of expenses. In other words, you'll get a card where instead of mom getting $500 in her pocket, no, she gets a $100 voucher for food. She gets a $300 voucher for rent, and so dad doesn't feel like, well, she's taking trips with my money. No, right. Your money's going directly to meet the needs of your child. It's utility vouchers, like I said, grocery vouchers, housing vouchers. And so that you feel like, hey, at least I know that and it may free up money for her to get her nails done, but you don't feel like she's taking your cash, and getting her nails done.
I had a, Dr. Tori, I just want to, since we're talking about that, I had an interesting story come up. When I picked up my children, my oldest just casually let me know that 2 days or 3 days after I paid my $4,600 purge payment of child support, that he received a brand new Nintendo Switch. Now, his father sleeps at his grandfather's house or my dad's house because I can't afford a place to live because they take over half of my income, actually 60% currently with unemployment. So she's able to purchase Nintendo Switches, which I would describe as luxury items designated for birthdays and Christmas. So my son, although I was happy he got this gift, he said, his words were, "Mommy bought me a Nintendo Switch." I had just spent 24 hours in jail. I was a little upset. I bit my tongue. I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And I delicately let him know that daddy sent mommy money to help pay for that Switch, and that's how I left it.
That's where he was going. And Tyesha, I was like, no, tell him that mommy and daddy purchased it because daddy money to help.
So a $300 gift on a regular weekday. He didn't like get a star at school, or it wasn't his birthday or Christmas, but because I sent a large, just ridiculous sum of child support money to her, she took it upon herself, and I'm sure she bought other various gifts over this weekend for herself, but she got a large payment. And my son, instead of being able to receive a gift from their father, whose money it is, I'm being kept broke and being called a deadbeat living at my dad's, because I'm forced to pay money. It's just a redistribution of wealth that the state has their hand in. And my ex got to be the hero, so to speak. And daddy is the one who has to say, "Baby, I can't afford to take you to Chick-fil-A because I just gave your mom $4,600.
Right. But you have to do like Dr. Barton said, you can change the narrative. Yeah. You know what I mean? Instead of seeing it as, I can't afford to do more because she did this, you can take that credit, say, I'm so excited that daddy was able to give mom that money and that she did choose to do something nice for you. Is there anything else that you would like her to do? Because she can afford to do it. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Hey, go ahead and ask her for some more stuff.
Yeah.
I did that with one of my clients. He had given, he's an artist, And so he had given mom $25,000, okay, 10,000, 7,500, and 7,500. And I told him, I said, after that last payment of 7,500 post, you send your son a nice email and say, let your mom know she should be able to get that car that you've been wanting. You know, she cussed me out. She cussed him out. How dare you tell him this is my money. No,
Right.
no,
It's
you
not your
got
money.
25 grand. Go ahead and get him the car, you know, that he's been wanting. So you change the narrative. You know, she wants him to be at all kind of deadbeats and all this kind of stuff, but you just got $25,000. You know, so yeah, we told the son, you know, let your mom know, you know, that last payment should post, you know, so you can go ahead and get that car. So you change the narrative. You know what I mean? Don't let the narrative be what you can't afford, what you can't do. You dropped a significant sum of money, and that's child support, and say, hey, you know, I'm glad that can go to meet your needs, but I'm also glad that you can enjoy it. You know, let's do something fun.
And let's have this, because Maurice is like, stop it. He can't show that. Mother can tell him different. Let me say this to you, Maurice, while we're having this conversation. It is going to constantly be a back and forth about the narrative. But if the father can show and prove who he is, by the time the child is old enough, trust me when I say, the shift will happen. It happens in every single situation. When dad does right, when dad is telling the truth and mom is playing the game, or if it's vice versa, because we know those cases, it's more with the dad. But if that happens, we have to understand that narrative is eventually going to come to light, and the child is going to be old enough to do the logic and figure it out and go, mom lied to me the entire time. It's going to hurt. It's going to be painful. I work with those individuals, but I want to talk to Attorney Tyesha really quickly because we got a few more minutes. You mentioned something. Mom calls it my money. Yeah, right? It's my money. How is it, like, how do we deal with that conversation of my money when we know that dads are Chris put money into the pot, but she's claiming it as her own and doing things with the money. I know you said New York is getting it right. They're putting it on cards. They're doing the vouchers. How does the dad deal with that when the child comes home? Because that's what Maurice is saying. How do we deal with the narrative from that perspective?
Yeah, and I would always say it just depends on the age of the child, you know, how deep you want to have that conversation, you know, because once a child is able, you know, to log online and see the pay record for themselves, you know, you don't have to say another word. You know what I mean? You know, the child can see. If the child is 13, they know the value of $1. They know how much a Game Boy costs, you know, so you can explain to them, hey, you know, the reason why we can't go out to dinner when you come over here is because I just had to pay this, you know, and you don't have to. I definitely am not an advocate of taking it beyond that. You know, I don't want you to take it to, you know, mom is selfish and, you know, she doesn't do this and she doesn't do that. No, I'm just saying that merely from a financial standpoint, well, dad, why you can't take me to Disney? Mom is taking me, you know, here's why. You know, I'm doing all I can to make sure that I keep this commitment to the system, you know, to make sure that I stay out of trouble and that I provide for you, you know, that I'm doing my part. So, you know, I would love to see you more. I would love to do more with you. But the state says that I have to do this first, you know, and if I have extra, you know, let's do it, you know, but also keep in mind, I am a cheapskate by nature, you know, so my thing is, you know, when you are getting beaten up by the system, explore those free activities that you can do, you know, with your kids. You know, my dad is, you know, I am almost 50 years old. My dad is over 75 years old. But when I tell you, he still lights up when I surprise him and say, hey, let's watch the Astros. You know what I mean? He just, you know, he melts. You know, he's like, you know, I can't do anything financially for him. He has more money I'll ever see, you know, in my lifetime. But, you know, spending that time, you know, means a lot to him. So, you know, discover those free things. I think one of the small blessings of COVID is it's teaching us the value of just spending time together. You know, so if you have young children, they're pitching tents, inside their bedrooms and, doing s'mores on the stove, just, return to a simpler time. Yes, the Game Boy is a lot of fun. Those game systems are great. I'll be honest with you. As soon as COVID hit, I plugged mine in, and I hadn't plugged it in years, but I don't have
everything
anybody.
is good. Everything is good in moderation.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. And we have several. I don't play them, but I
Yeah.
my husband, they're here, but we use them for other things. I want to kind of sum this up really quickly, because Chris and I, Chris is like, child support advocate. A lot of us look at child support hustle. A lot of men see this as extortion. They see it as unfair. What's the legislation move? I know you said New York, but what's the legislation move in this system, in this current climate, Tyesha, for fathers to call legislators and, what I'm saying? But what do they talk about? What is the move in that way to get this child support thing done right and even removed to some degree?
Yes. Oh, I think that's a marvelous question. And I think that now is the time to do, like Chris was saying earlier, look at needs-based as opposed to income-based. If we can change the spirit of the law, we can move it forward. I think right now, in a lot of jurisdictions, is income-based. If I get a pilot, his child support is going to be different from the factory worker. And like Chris said earlier, that child's needs didn't change. You know what I mean? Dad's income was different. So I shouldn't punish the pilot for going to school, getting educated, and making something of himself. Why should he be punished and have to pay more than the factory worker that didn't go to school, didn't get educated? So we have to shift the focus from dad's income or non-custodial parents' income to the needs of the child. And I think that if we can start there, make those calculators that you talked about, and the little space,
The
and children have basically, that worksheet shouldn't vary based on your income. That worksheet should start with a fundamental desire to meet the needs of that child, and also to make sure that it's meeting your proportion of the needs for that child. Because what we have to remember is that our laws are kind of antiquated. They're birthed from a society that had dad as the provider. Some of them are still steeped in mom being the stay-at-home person. Yeah. And so they're not drafted reflecting two working parents. So the calculator is trying to make dad meet all the needs as opposed to 50% of the needs. Right. So I think that those are two things that I think that laws should focus on. Go ahead.
What do you think also about, for me, it's common sense. Custody should be decided before a child support order is even in place. So we should be discussing custody when people split, period. Not worrying about subsidizing needs, because obviously when two people split, someone's going to have to go in another home. But I did a video earlier today. When you talk about taking 40, 50, 60, 70% of a person's income, who is barely making it on 100% of their income as an intact family, when you take, let's just say, half of their income, how, mathematically, logically, that person can't even afford a home if they were barely making it as an intact family with 100% of their income, with their kids under the same roof, paying a mortgage, paying insurance, paying for groceries. Now you're basically redistributing half of that income to another person, and then only have half of your income to essentially pay the same bills.
Yeah.
Right.
You're bankrupting people.
Yeah, and that's where I have to give Texas a shout out, because you have to attack laws that allow for that. Because here in Texas, you cannot take more than 50%. If a person pays $600 a month in child support, but they're working part-time, making minimum wage, and they're only bringing home, $800 a month, then child support is capped and they can only take out 400. So if you have a jurisdiction where the laws are allowing a system to take more than 50%, you got to start there. And then to me, you start that being the worst case scenario. And like you said, I don't even think that 50% is fair. I don't think that's right, but it should be a ceiling. You know what I mean? There should be.
Well, if you think about it, if it costs me, it costs me roughly 50% or so of my income to pay for bills, pay for mortgage, rent, food for kids, groceries, this and that.
But that's you do it right, Chris. That's a good budget because most people are check to check, and it's more than 50%.
I mean, so I worked. Well, that's another thing is I worked 60 hours a week, sometimes more, because I was the only provider. Now, separating from my child's mother, that has become used as a tool that says he's not around, he doesn't know anything about his kids, and so that gets thrown in your face. Meanwhile, you even fed her baby mouth. You know what I mean? When she needed clothes, you bought her clothes. So you did what was asked of you, what was needed, because at the time she needed to be home. There was health issues, this and that. So I stepped up. But when we choose to separate, you talk about that 50%. Well, that means really I should be paying 25%, and she should be paying the other 25% to make that 50%.
Exactly.
She has her own mortgage, she has her own rent, she has her own live-in boyfriend. They can provide their own bills. When you give me custody, I'm happy to provide for my children out of my check with my own money. No one's not taking care of their kids. So when I walked into that courtroom and they said, "Don't you think you should take care of your kids?" I said, "Don't you think you should give them to me?"
Yeah, and my thing is again, I have to toot my state's horn because we are getting it right in that respect as well. Where fathers fight for custody, at least in Harris County, they get it a majority of the time. Our judges applaud and reward dads that step up and say, I can take equal or better care of my child. So, I applaud organizations like Tories that not only help fathers that are fighting the system and getting punished by the system, but those that want to use the system, to get custody. Because like I said, we're definitely getting it right, here with respect to that. So I would just encourage people to disabuse themselves of that stereotype, if you will, that our courts are still favoring mothers. And please, I understand, I don't know where everybody lives. There may be some jurisdictions that do. So I'm only speaking, for Texas, that we are definitely getting it right, where a father, if he steps forward and says, "I want my child," I promise you, if he doesn't get the child, he gets an ear. And that's on record. And I would always encourage people, if you have the means or the resources to fight for your child, even if you don't get primary custody, it's on record. It's in the case file that you tried, that you tried to get custody. And so they can't paint you with that deadbeat brush. They can't paint you with that disinterested brush, so even if it's just adding it to your answer, saying that, hey, I don't mind addressing this child support issue, but I do want to talk about custody. Now, in all jurisdictions, the Attorney General doesn't handle custody, so you end up getting moved out of those 4D courts. But still, put that seed in that judge's ear. That we wouldn't have all these issues if you guys would seriously consider me as a primary custodian.
And this is something that I want to bring up because you were talking about child support, and then Chris was talking about when my kids are with me. We have to stop painting this picture that men aren't providing for their children just because they're behind in the actual administrative side of child support. Children do spend time with their fathers, and fathers have to provide for them when they're in their care. Most dads, yep, they get the standard 6 to 9 days out of the month. That doesn't mean that that's all they want, but they have to make sure the kids eat when they're with them. They have to make sure the kids are clothed when they're with them. They have to make sure all of the things that a mother does majority of the time when they're the primary custodial parent, the child has those things. So you can't say that a dad is a deadbeat and just paint this brush because he's not always on time or he doesn't always pay the administrative part of child support. Dads are taking care of their kids when they're in their care. And if we would just stop using this term deadbeat to just say that about every man who's a non-custodial parent, I think we will have better fathers showing up. And I'm not saying that dads aren't good, but what I am saying is when you are constantly told that you're a deadbeat, that does something to you mentally. Even if it's not real, men still are taking that on. It bothers them. But we don't see that.
Yeah,
it impacts how they parent. It impacts the father.
I can tell you that even when she says things that aren't true, it's weird. It bothers me. Literally, she's like, you don't pay. I haven't paid, especially during this COVID thing, but I wound up saving all that money and paying it. But I have records that show how much and how long I've paid child support. Even when we were living under the same roof, I had a child support order. I was paying her child support while we were dating. I was paying $1,400 a month when we reconciled, and she wouldn't let go of that money because she wanted to see how things would go. A month before we broke up, she wanted to marry me. I can prove that. So we're dealing with people that are mentally, emotionally unhealthy, and the court system isn't geared to understand the fact that people lie, and that, when you present evidence that shows, well, I've been paying, I can show you tax statements of my income, I can show you how much child support I paid, and we're just allowing for, false allegations of whatever, maybe abuse or just, perjury within a family court system.
There's emotional abuse that happens in this conversation a lot. I'm not saying that every dad's experiencing that. I'm not saying that every mom is doing that. But what I am saying is it amazes me how a woman can say, you don't pay. Yeah, I didn't pay for 3 months, but I was paying before that. But it impacts how they move. That's some cognitive behavioral stuff that's going on. I want to get off of here because I know we can stay on here talking about this all night. I want to respect people's time. And I asked Attorney Tyesha to come on for 30 minutes, and we are just at that 30-minute mark. I believe she gave some great information, even some information Chris can now use for the other side. We're not going to get into that on here, but we wanted to bring some factual legal advice to this conversation. And I thank you for jumping on here with us, Attorney Tyesha. Those of you who are in Houston, Harris County, she's right. Harris County does get it right, because we have seen some cases where dads have fought, and yes, the fight feels unfair, but at the end, the dads win. We watched a person within our community fight to make sure that his son did not have to change his sex at such an early age. That's Harris County. Okay, that's Harris County, Texas. And the judge got it right. And what did they do to the judge? Recused her, and they're trying to do this thing all over again. It's not going to work in Harris County, is what Tyesha's saying. But we want dads to know, fight. Because the fight is on record for your children, and even your own ability to know that I did the best I could. That's what's out there. You may not win. It may not be perfect in every county, but I need you to know that the fight at the end, it's going to take a lot from you, but you can win, dads. You can. And that's where we are with Chris. We're going to have the praise report at the end of this, but this is just part of the fight for fatherhood that we want to talk about. So Tyesha, thank you for coming on. Chris, thank you for allowing us to share your traumatic story from last week where we were pumped up and angry, but there's still some fight to be had in that case. And I'm looking forward to getting Chris on when he gets his time with his kids and it's fair. All right. So we will talk to you guys later, and you guys all have a good night. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night. Bye-bye.